Good evening and welcome to TalkSports. It's our weekly sports program where we speak with the sports administrators, the coaches, sportsmen, sportswomen, just about everyone directly or indirectly involved in sports. Well, on this week's program and on tonight in particular, we'll be speaking a little more on track and field as we into the track and field season, to be honest. Okay, and there will be lots to talk about um, for the next, you know, few weeks, I should say, as we deep into the track and field season. In between, of course, we'll be looking at other sporting events like football and cricket, and even the case of rugby. Yes, we have a rugby show to talk about later on in the program. But tonight, in particular, we will be speaking with the president of the British Virgin Islands Athletic Association. He is Mr. Steve Augustine, and he will be talking to us about athletics in the British Virgin Islands. Well, as you know, and strangely enough, the British Virgin Islands, with only a population of about 30,000, finished on third in the medal tally at the just concluded CARIFTA Games in Jamaica. And albeit four gold medals, finishing just behind the eventual winners, Jamaica as hosts, and the Bahamas. And when you look at the population size one, the sort of resources these other countries have, like Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, Jamaica, and others, certainly you will know that the British Virgin Islands, in its standards, it means that they did pretty well, and certainly a lot of talk about. So the president, Mr. Steve Augustine, will join us momentarily. He's on already, and he will talk about all that is happening in the British Virgin Islands. Well, he will have to tell us because we will want to know what is really taking place in the British Virgin Islands. Certainly, it has to do a lot with the programs they have there because the athletes are home based, homegrown talents. And I recall about a few months ago, late last year, Mr. Augustine made an appeal for corporate British Virgin Islands to come on board to assist. He says, yes, the Olympic committees and others are there, but we need corporate BVI. And it's something, we have been hearing about, and we'll talk to Mr. Augustine about this as well. So let me welcome, by the way, Mr. Augustine is in Road Town, Tortola. As you know, there are lots of not just Grenadians, but I know other Caribbean nationals that actually live in the British Virgin Islands. So I want to say good evening to them as well. But let me say good evening to Mr. Steve Augustine, and he is in live joining us from Road Town in Tortola in the British Virgin Islands. Good evening to you, Mr. Augustine.
Good evening to you, Brother Bascom. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Mr. Augustine. And as I said in my introduction, you know, many people will want to know what is really happening in the British Virgin Islands in terms of track and field. Phenomenal display by the British Virgin Islands in terms of medal tallies and performances, I should say as well, because yes, we had Miss Hodge doing exceptionally well, but we saw other athletes chipping in as well. Good evening to you once again, and as an introduction, tell us a little more about the British Virgin Islands Athletic Association as a start.
Well, as you rightfully said, my name is indeed Steve Augustine. I sit as president of the BVIAA Athletics Association. I work with a wonderful committee, members including Willis Stodman, treasurer, Stephanie Rospen, general secretary, Ralston Henry, vice president, and Cleve Farrington, PRO, and Chantel Scatliff, who works with me as assistant secretary. So, from the association standpoint, I have a good team that surrounds me. I tell them all the time, whether or not I'm there or not, I'm never worried because I work with a team that's fully capable of taking on the role and progressing forward. And while I'm talking about progressing forward, I think that's one of the good things about BVI athletics. I made mention to this very same statement earlier on today, and I'll make mention again, is that athletics in the BVI, we don't have a numbers problem because athletics is a sport that all people naturally gravitate towards. So we've continually had scores of children, athletes, make their way over to the track, and they're all interested in joining the clubs. And we have a very good club system. There was a lot of criticism about the club system when it first started, but we are now seeing, or we have continued to see, the true benefits of that very same club system. Because what that club system did for us is it created um, internal competition, or a higher level of internal competition, where the kids go out regularly on Saturdays. Of course, you would have known about the passing of our past chief coach, Dag Xavier Samuels.
Samuel. Yeah.
And in honor of his name, we've named those meets, those development meets, as you would refer to them as the Dag Samuels, quote unquote, the Dag Samuels development meets. So we have those continuously throughout the year, and it's a fair chance for our athletes to come on out and showcase their talents. Sometimes we have bigger crowds than other times. But the fact is, we provide an opportunity here on Island, not just to come out and compete, but to come out and compete at a high level. And while we're speaking about competing at a higher level, if I can just go on, our coaches, in answering your question. So the BVI has benefited over the years by having persons who have competed in athletics venture off to the relative Division 1 schools, the U.S. track and field system. Some have done really well, and we have a good portion of athletes that go abroad, compete, get educated, and they return home and they give back. So that skill set that is learned from abroad is returned at home and is fed back into our athletes. So we have trained coaches, and then we have this plethora of athletes who are continually coming back and building our programs here at home. So it's been, I can't, as much as I would want to, I can't sit here and take the credit. This has been an evolutionary type process. And within recent years, we've really started to see the benefits of or training our coaches or athletes coming back and partaking in track and field, and helping to make our younger athletes better. So it's evolution that has certainly taken place over the years.
And I assume, Steve, that it has to do too with the a sort of grassroots program as part of the British Virgin Islands Athletic Association in terms of unearthing talent and ensuring that there is some level of sustainability.
Right. So, of course, I presume you would know of the likes of persons such as Ray
Yeah.
O'Neill, who really started the BVIAA back in the day. He saw that there was indeed potential on Ireland. We've always had potential. And certainly our grassroots program has continued to grow from his years to mine. Notwithstanding, we would have had persons like Brother Ephraim Pren, who now sits as president of the BVI Olympic Committee, that once led the charge for BVI athletics, the Dean Greenaways, who you know very well.
Yeah.
He would have been there before. I give him credit as well. And now I am there, and I'm just continuing that trend, just seeking to raise the standard of athletics in the BVI or grassroots program. Luckily for us, we have a system in place where inter-school competition is well and live. It's always been that way, and it has continued to be that way. So government themselves has taken an active role in ensuring that we have an athletic program in all of our primary school, both public and private. That in itself creates a feeder to the very same club system I mentioned before. We have done the kids athletics program. As a matter of fact, I did that course myself, and I've done a few demonstrations for kids athletics myself. So again, building on the fact that our kids naturally gravitate towards athletics, we start with the youths. We motivate them and get them to fiddle, for lack of a better word, around with the different events, whether it's everyone wants to be the next top sprinter, but we introduce them to a plethora of different type of events, and the BVI has benefit not just track and field wise, because we really look at what we're doing on an international on the international scene, you would see that or on the regional scene as well, you would see that we've continually showed up in the field events, the throws. We have a number of standouts where that is concerned. So the track and field events, of course, they typically take the limelight. But the fact is, we've done well in the field event. Of course, you would have seen Chantel Malone at the Olympics doing her thing in the long jump event. So, our youths, they're inspired. They're starting to see the benefits of all the hard work that's been put in. Persons like Karen McMaster doing it big on the international scene in the 400-meter hurdles. And, I take nothing away from other talents in other countries, but we have a system in place here where our athletes are trying to be the next Adaejah Hodge or the next Karen McMaster or the next Chantel Malone. So we have inspiration from within, and that feeds continuous promise.
Hmm. And speaking about Adaejah Hodge, which we'll get back to in a moment, but in a post games interview, you said the best is yet to come.
Yes.
So we saw what we saw at CARIFTA Games, and here is the president saying the best is yet to come. What can we look forward to?
Well, it goes back to my previous statement. We have coaches here that's on the ground working hard, and I know that it's the same in other countries. But what we have tried to do and tried to mimic, and have started to reap some benefits from it, is that we have continually increased our knowledge base. We've continually increased or improved our training programs. I think we have a better grips as to what needs to be done if we're to be competitive on the regional or international scene. We have the benefits of having, and I said it in my previous interview, we have the benefits of having persons like Ray O'Neill, who's a true statistician, perhaps one of the best, not just in the region, in the world. That resides right here on island. So it doesn't take much for us to figure out, you're under 14 on athletes, under 15 athletes, where are they and what are they doing worldwide? That information is readily available to us through past President Ray O'Neill, who's continued to be on the front line of keeping good stats. As it relates to what's yet to come for the BVIA, we have some really good younger athletes that would have watched Adaejah compete at the CARIFTA Games. And when I say younger, they still have a few years ahead of themselves, and they are truly inspired. And when you look at what they are doing at their age, compared to others like Adaejah and those who would have walked that road before, track and field is, some of it is a shoot and miss, and some of it is predictive. You can look at indicators when these kids are at young ages, and you can tell based on their progression what direction they're going. And from what we see, without letting the entire cat out the bag, we have a few boys and girls that is definitely going to show up big time on the regional scene in a few years' time, a year or two or three. You'll see them; they'll be there. They're inspired, and I got to give the Adejas and the Taisha Scott Harrigan Scott, sorry, and all those guys that came before, credit, because what they've done, they've left a legacy that I wish I could find a better word, but it just truly motivates our kids to want to get out there, and just fight for those victories. I was on the phone, not to belabor your question anymore, but I was on the phone with one of our coaches today, and he was we were speaking, and he was saying, one of the benefits as well, and I'll give him all credit. I was Coach Winston Potter. He said, it's not just about athletics, it's also about exposure, because we speak a lot about development, and a lot of time we speak about development, persons tend to take that, to think that development is solely related to running, from a track and field standpoint. Are you progressing in your athletic career? But development also speaks about exposure. How do you deal with seeing 500 kids or 400 athletes at the very same track meet that you're going to compete at? Are your nerves able to deal with that? And one of the things we've pushed for as an association is to, some of these athletes, just give them a chance, let them go out, and maybe they don't do it on the first year, we get them on the second year, sorry, but give them a chance to go out and see what regional competition is truly about. They'll get their feet wet, and they'll come back and they'll fight a better fight the next time. So, development, we take it full spectrum.
Mhm. And you said that yes, Hodge is the latest, but you had the McMaster, you had Chantel, you had Eldred Henry as well, and
Right.
Dahisha and others
Yes.
who blazed the trail before. And now we have Hodge. And you
Yes.
also spoke about how that will inspire some of the young talents.
Right.
And how much you think, too, that will ensure for your call that you made late last year for, corporate BVI to come on board because you need that sort of support to ensure that there's some level of sustainability. How do you hope that this cry will not fall on deaf ears?
Well, it definitely wasn't a cry on deaf ears. We've already started to reap the benefits of those calls that were. I think I made that call a few months or a year or so ago, maybe even more. But it's something that we've continued to echo on a public forum. That despite all that we do and all the challenges that we face and all the good that we do as well on the track, if we're able, as I like to put it, if we're able to do so much with so less, imagine what we can do with just a little bit more. Coming back from the CARIFTA Games, I've received personally a plethora of calls, and I'm glad for those calls. And we've had some persons from the community level that has stepped up and come alongside the workings of the association, as far as getting things in place from a financial standpoint to make us more effective. So um, those calls did not fall on deaf ears. I'm glad for the support that we've received so far, be it monetary or in kind. And from what I can see, the predictions with all the paperwork that is continually flooding my desk from the support that we're getting from corporate BVI, it seems like BVI Athletics will more than mushroom over the next couple of years. So it's been a blessing. I'm truly thankful that I'm in a position to sit as president during this point in time in athletics. I always say that, the greatest success that BVI Athletics has ever experienced has been now. It's a progression. It's continually gotten better. We've made some milestones over the years, at Commonwealth Games, Kyron McMaster. We have World Championships coming up, and we're expecting that, great things happen there as well. We've got the Commonwealth Games again happening this year. But again, going back to your question, the calls did not fall on deaf ears. Cooperative BVI has indeed listened to the cries. And I think that, generally speaking, we have a community of people that wants to see our athletes do well. And that's our sole aim and purpose to create a facet so that these kids, for the most part, because they come in pretty young, that they can truly benefit and enjoy an athletic career. If that means getting an education out of it as well, we're definitely all for that. And if that means going professionally, um, in tandem with getting an education or thereafter you achieve your degree, we continue to support them along the way.
Mhm.
We have a wonderful BVI Olympic Committee. I don't like to come on air without mentioning. I call him my brother Ephraim Penn, who sits as president of the BVIOC. You know, I call him often enough, and usually when I call, it's for help. And he's never heard the cry and didn't answer. Sometimes maybe take a little bit longer than we would like it to, but he's always come forward, and we have an Olympic committee that works in tandem with the efforts of the BVI Athletics Association. So we're just in a good place. Good things are happening. Athletes are inspired. Our coaches are highly motivated. It just makes that the job just that much easier when you bring those different elements together. Magic happens.
Mhm. There are two things I want to ask you about that could be correlated. One has to do with how do you ensure that your uh, your your constituents remain in track and field and not get distracted to probably other sports, basketball, etc., etc. I mean, look at the proximity to the U.S., the mainland, and even the U.S. Virgin Islands. That's one. And two, whether or not you're concerned that some of your talents, after a while, may probably um, decide to compete for Great Britain, the United Kingdom.
Right. So as far as keeping our athletes or future athletes' potentials attracted or interested in track and field, or keeping them from moving away from track and field, I think our successes can't go unnoticed. In an earlier conversation, once again, earlier this evening, I was speaking to another one of our coaches about getting these athletes off to school, a handful of athletes off to school in September. And just as I had said earlier, in I don't know, was it with you? One of my, maybe perhaps a different interview, but you know, just take a look as to what's happening in athletics. We have athletes that are competing locally, regionally, internationally. We have athletes making it on the world stage, and we have athletes. One of the big things for all athletes here on Ireland, I can only speak to what happens here in the Virgin Islands. I'm not 100% knowledgeable as to how it works in other countries. But I know all athletes are highly motivated by the fact that athletic scholarships is something that you can indeed achieve through athletics. And I will put a full stop there and before speaking about, what's attainable in or through other federations or other sporting activities on Ireland. And I know about athletics, and I'll speak about that. And what you have is a situation where our youngsters are able to see, hey, I know that guy. He was in class with me, and now he's running track, and now he's heading off to school. That's my dream. I want to do that as well. So it doesn't take much from the association to push and fight and try to convince people to stay, because I think when people stop and realize and see what's physically happening in athletics, that's a natural attraction. That's all the PR that we need to put out about how you can benefit from athletics. That comes naturally based on the successes of our athletes who are competing, and the fact that these kids are going off of school and they're doing good things in D1 colleges and the junior college level and the D2 colleges and whatever it may be. So that speaks for itself. So we personally, we don't see that as a fight that we need to fight here on the island, because again, the successes of our athletes has and has continued to win that fight for us. So that's not something that we place a whole lot of effort on. Your second question, could you remind me? Sorry.
Yeah, it had to do with whether or not there's any concern that your talents after a while may choose to compete for, Great Britain, the United Kingdom.
Well, it's something that we've spoken about at a high level, at the association level. We've never had to face that battle. The conversation is exactly one that I had a few days ago with another friend of mine. But one of the good things about the BVI, well, about the BVI, is that the fact that we have an Olympic Committee existing on Ireland. We have the BVI Olympic Committee. Other territories that are under the umbrella of the United Kingdom, there are other territories that do not, and for them that becomes the obvious option to perhaps leave their home countries and compete for the United Kingdom. That's what it takes for that athlete to compete, because they don't have a BVI Olympic Committee existing on Ireland, and that's simply what it takes for them. It's not something, again, that we have paid much attention to from a BVI standpoint. I mean, it is indeed an option if an athlete wants to do that. I do believe there's a process through world athletics that you must go through before you can't just jump up, for lack of a better word, today and compete for the UK tomorrow. There's a process, but we have our ups and downs. We try our best to treat our athletes well. We were super happy a few years back to be sponsored by an internationally recognized brand, Puma, has come on board with us. So, our athletes, they're well geared. They look really nice in their uniforms, and those simple things that perhaps would have been problematic for us in previous years, they're no longer an issue. So the little things that we do, our athletes are appreciative. Of course, there's a whole lot more that we can do, and perhaps there's quite a bit to benefit if they were to compete for the United Kingdom. But there's no better place to be a king than at home. We have a wonderful sporting community that supports our athletes, and we've held a few high-level meets here on Ireland, and I think it's every athlete's dream to not just compete, but to compete at a high level at home, and win. As simple as that may sound, that's a big motivator. Government has done quite a bit to assist our athletes. We're currently in discussions with them about doing a whole lot more. And again, these are things that are keepers or keepsakes for athletes. So I won't stand here and say that that's not perhaps something that may have crossed um, an athlete's mind in the BVI. I'm not aware. They would probably be best to speak about that. But I think there's enough happening in the BVI to persuade individuals to just stay and compete. And we have athletes that are internationally sponsored, and they're doing it all from home. Um, they've done it all from home. Some have ventured off and trained in different locations, but again, high level conversations, but nothing that we've brought to the forefront of our agenda at our executive meetings.
Mhm. Well, I promise that we'll speak a bit about Hodge's performance, uh, in particular, I should say, at the CARIFTA Games. Going into the CARIFTA Games in Kingston, Jamaica, how confident was U.S. President and I'm saying U.S. President as a former athlete yourself,
Yes.
and knowing about Hodge's ability, but how confident was the BVI about Hodge's performance?
Well, if you permit me, I'll jump back on Ray O'Neill, our statistician.
Right.
So it was weeks before when we first started to speak about predictions. We were awaiting some results from meets that took place in Jamaica. Of course, we had our eyes on those, and we had our eyes on what was happening in Trinidad and what was happening in Barbados. There are some key countries that we had our eyes on. Well, I say we, but more so Ray O'Neill and keeping his stats. So those conversations as to what would likely happen at the CARIFTA Games are discussions that we had very early on, perhaps a month and a half before the actual hosting of the CARIFTA Games. So on a weekly basis, I would speak with Ray and he would give me an update. Well, this athlete is ranked number one or ranked number two, or they dropped down a few, or they bumped, or they remained in their position. So going into the CARIFTA Games, our predictions were actually higher than what we achieved while there, because when you think about or you talk about athletes like Akrisa Uristi, Kalia Leiber that contested the under 20 girls 400, we don't pick, we don't have preferential lanes, but perhaps if things were a little bit different with their assignments, lane assignments, the results may have changed. We're pretty sure that the results may have very well changed if that was not the case. So perhaps a medal or two in the under 20 girls 400. Of course, you would have known about Jaleel Kroll, the defending under 17 200-meter champion, bronze medal in the under 17 boys 100-meter. He came back as an under 20 athlete. He went 20 point in December in the 200 meter, so he was race ready. But we had a few problems coming into CARIFTA with him. And, he came and he ran, didn't run as he should. Certainly not the times that he ran just December that passed a few short months ago, or the 21 seconds that he ran just a few short weeks ago. But, in the game of track and field, these things do happen. I always say it's not how how hard you're hit, is how quick you're able to get up. So he's
Yeah.
back on island training once again. Of course, we would have had the under 17 boys silver medalist in the long jump, Kuiper Dawson. Didn't had the best day at the CARIFTA Games. So there may have been, perhaps you'll never know without the chance to truly prove it, but we may have perhaps left a few medals in Jamaica. But the few that we did collect, Adaejah Hodge, it goes without say, you've got to give that young lady her credit. I see that you want to go right ahead.
No, no, no. I was, I smiled and laughed and chuckled because you said apparently you left a few medals in
Yeah, we
Jamaica.
definitely. I am, as president, I'm 100% confident we definitely left a few medals
Uh,
in Jamaica. But again, we had young Saviana Joseph that took gold in the under 17 goal shot put. We always knew that she would do well, and she came out shining. So we're super happy for that. Of course, Jacqueline Morton in the high jump event. I think that was the under 17 girls. She came out with the bronze. Was it? Yeah. And Adaejah Hodge. it was no question that she would go there and do well. The question is, how well would she really do? We never underestimated the talent level of our competitors. We knew that, Jamaica always comes with, some of the best talents that the world has ever seen. And, we always had our eyes on them. And we know that there's always a few standouts here and there from different Caribbean countries. But we knew all along that, Adaejah was definitely going to be one to compete against or to contest against if you were seeking to win those events. She's continually progressed really well at the high school level in the U.S. high school system. So her performances, I think there was a reporter that asked whether or not we were surprised by what was done. The truth is, yes, in some sense we were, but for the most part, it is what we expected. She's a fighter at heart. She's been world ranked as a junior for years, competing at what do you call it, the Junior Olympics in the U.S. high school system, and she's continually done well. We had a warm welcoming for her a few years back when she competed at the Junior Olympics, and she has continually, pushed the envelope as far as what she's able to do in the sprints. As a matter of fact, she also runs the quarter mile, the 400 meter, and it's something we were back and forth. What events is she really going to contest while she's here? And maybe the wrongs for the 400 meter might have been quite a bit for her. But the truth is, she would have gone out there in the under 17 girls 400 meter, and she would have given you an equally high spirited performance, just as she did in the 100, the 200, and the long jump. So um, I like to let the videos speak for themselves. So, I can go on and on, but for those of you who haven't looked at the videos or looked at the time, I encourage you to do that. And we're just happy that, she's one of us. Whenever she competes, you look at her arm, she wears our flag with pride. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter where she is or where she goes, a BVIAA at heart. Her mom, some of the stories that you may not know is her mom, Tanya Hodge, was also an athlete. Came up slightly after I did. There you go. There she is, standing next to Coach Erica Fredericks. But her mom ran as well. And if you listen to Ray O'Neill speak about her lineage, you would hear stories about her, I believe her grandfather, which was, from what Ray says, past President Ray O'Neill, perhaps one of the best that ever walked the roads of the BVI as far as athletics is concerned. Of course, in those days, the opportunities may not have been in abundance as much as it is today. But she comes from a family that has a great tradition of performing really well in athletics, and she's taken that to a new level. And we're going to stick alongside her and help her along the way as much as we possibly can. And hopefully, it's my dream. We've done it at the Commonwealth Games level, that's perhaps, and the World Indoor level with Aisha Harrigan Scott. But I would really like to see one of our athletes on the Olympic podium. And if that's Kerr McMaster, I'm going to stand with him 110%. But if that turns out to be one of our junior athletes, I'm going to stand no less near to them. I'm going to stand with them 100%. And, that's something that we look forward to on a daily basis. So kudos to what she did. Um, we were just all happy for her. The country's happy. It's just been a good mood.
Yeah, and and talking about podium, you have been, let's say, BVI has been almost there. Fourth place.
Right.
Just missing out on the medal. And things
Yeah.
like that. So, but what is important? And let me probably I have a question that came up for you there, so I'll just get a question out and then
Mm.
we'll move on. The question is, how about exchange or training programs to assist other small developing, and I would add struggling islands in the field of athletics? That was a question that's asked by someone who's
Uh,
listening.
we would welcome that in a heartbeat. We've done in previous years, we've had some of our athletes venture down to Grenada, and we've had athletes venture over to Jamaica. So that's not anything that's uncommon to us. Perhaps we don't do it as much now as we did in previous years, but if there's a way that other developing countries can benefit from having athletes here, whether you speak to me as president or you speak to any one of the club coaches, based on what they do, I don't think that will be a discussion that will be frowned upon. We would welcome that in a heartbeat. And the truth is, the more ties we create, the more alliance we create. The better off it is for both you and us. So whomever that person may be, you can visit our Facebook page. Our contact details are all listed there. I would encourage you to perhaps send a private email or a private message, and we can continue that discussion a little bit more on a more personal level. But that's definitely something that we would encourage and want to promote. So we're not against that at all.
Mhm. And you have mentioned, and for those who don't know, you have mentioned Ray O'Neill's name quite a bit, while speaking. And yes,
Many times.
yeah, and rightly so. And it appears that for the
Yes.
BVI, you are using the experience and expertise of someone, though retired, and still around and still doing phenomenal work, not just for the BVI, but I can say for the region, because he has been putting out stats on, yes, BVI athletes, but you will see the entire OECS to an extent, and comparing why you as president believe that you have to tap into the experience of such people like Ray O'Neill and even some of your predecessors. Oh, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I think I missed the last part of it, but I do understand you're speaking about the stats that Ray O'Neill typically puts
Yeah,
out.
and in addition to that, how you're relying on the experience and the expertise
We
of not just Ray O'Neill, but all the others who have been there before.
we have to because athletics, it has to be a collective approach. Yes, you may train in isolation, but you don't run in isolation. So you want to be abreast as to what's taking place within the region. You want to know who's out there doing what, where they're at, the benefits that they're perhaps receiving, and you want to mimic some of that. You hear a lot about the good things that is happening in Jamaica with their athletes and their coaches. We've had a few Jamaican coaches here as well. Of course, we currently have Mr. Carl Barrett. I think he's a JC Foster graduate, so he comes here with his skill knowledge. In previous years, Lenford Levy, who was my coach from Jamaica as well, spent many years here. So that knowledge transfer has indeed taken place, and we've continued to build on it based on the experiences of our athletes coming back. But you speak with Ray, he would always say, yeah, you guys, you do listen, but maybe sometimes you can perhaps listen to me a little bit more, and you'll get that. We're an association, we operate independently of everything else that surrounds it. But to go without giving a listening ear to some of the commentary out there from persons like Ray O'Neill, it would be foolish of us to do that. So I speak with him almost on a daily basis. To be quite honest with you, there's hardly, definitely, a week doesn't go by without us touching, one of us touching base with the other. So he's continually been an inspiration for me. I've known him since I was an athlete, now as an administrator, and he's encouraged me along the way. Definitely got a few pointers from him, and I can't go giving credit um, administratively without mentioning the likes of Dak Samuels as well. He did a lot for BV Athletics. Um, it's a touchy subject. Um, the way that his departure unfolded, but again, we've had these persons. They've been around a very long time. That has built a wealth of knowledge, and it's one of the true benefits of BV Athletics. I'm not sure if I said it before, but again, we have people that go off, come back, they stay in athletics, and they live a long life through athletics. So, whether it's officiating or whatever it may be, um, we have a family of people that are highly motivated. 90% of the persons you see out at our track meets volunteering, they were former athletes. Um, all of our coaches were perhaps former athletes. So yeah, we have a good supportive system around us, and I'm definitely happy to have them. And I say give people the flowers while they're alive. So to go without, again, lending a listening ear to, the stats are real. Whether you go to World Athletics website and you look it up, or you give Ray a call, or you speak to someone that's knowledgeable about it. It's all good information to have, because if you're going into these competitions unknown as to who to look out for, you're already fighting a lost battle. You've got to have some kind of indication, especially when you want to compete at a high level, as to what the stakes are and who's there to look out for. It doesn't change your game plan, but it makes you more prepared for what you're about to face.
Mhm. Um, and talking about administration, administrating, administrator, etc. You're
Yes,
in your 40s and already in your second term as president of the BVIAA.
yes.
What really got you, encouraged or inspired to get involved in administration at that level?
I see you've done your research really well. So I give you credit there. But it goes back again. I mentioned it before. I tried not to touch it too much, but when I returned home, I said, well, I'll go and I'll coach. The hurdles is the event that I did, and I'll do that. And then Coach Samuel. Well, I still coach. I coached up. Well, I still coach on a daily basis. But at the time, um, Coach Samuels approached me. We always had a good relationship. I actually worked with his kids. Whenever he traveled, he would leave his athletes in my hands and others to work with. But he approached me and said, "Steve, you know what? We have enough coaches right now. What we need is some administrators." And we were back and forth on that for a very long time, because I never saw myself as a administrator, quote unquote, in athletics. I always saw myself, well, I'm going to coach and I'm going to, develop good athletes and share some of the skills that I learned while I was away. But Coach Dag Samuels was definitely the mastermind behind that. Um, he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. We would be on the phone on Saturdays. He would invite me over to his house. We would sit at the track, and as always, this is what we're going to do. He would never ask me if I'm interested. Steve, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to. At the time, he would have been in the association at a very high level at chief coach. So he eventually got me to, started take on some of these courses, and um, the interest definitely grew. And then I saw where I could, make an improvement. I ran with that. I was the vice president to Dean of Sportsman Greenway, who was the president there before me. And I got my feet wet walking alongside him. He's definitely a go-getter in athletics. But when the time came where I felt it was perhaps time to step up and take lead, with persons like Coach Samuels behind of me, Coach Willis Todman, of course my wife and my family, uh, and all the coaches out there. It was just time. They say when the time comes, and there's really no reason to question that. So, and that speaks not just for athletics, but anything else that you take on in life. So, when that time came, I decided this is what I'm going to do, and our people in athletics elected me, obviously for the first term, and they went ahead, and I think I ran uncontested the second time around. Um, I figure that will perhaps change in years to come, but as long as I'm there, I'm going to do the best that I possibly can, and again, as much as um, it's as much as what's done, sorry, in athletics through the association is not just Steve Augustine. Again, whenever I get the chance to speak on the mic, I always give these guys credit, because without them, it would be such a difficult job. So when you have good people supporting you and around you, it makes the job so much easier. I brag and I boast all the time, because if there's an event that I can't attend or I can't speak at, or a presentation I can't give, it's never a problem, because those members on with me on my team, they're equally talented. They're very high spirited, and it just makes being president so much easier than not having supportive people around you.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Let me just get a comment here. I think not a question, but a comment. Hope someone from the Grenada Athletic Association or Olympics Committee listening. Yes, we have Olympic gold, silver, and bronze, and a world champ, but we also have much more to learn. And a marriage with BVI can only be a plus. What you think about like-minded and associations in the region collaborating, working together. Yes, we do not have the sort
Yeah,
of
plus.
resources. Yeah, we do not have the sort of resources
Right.
as those in North America and Europe. But that comment about associations in the region coming together and working together for the good and the benefit of those athletes. Yeah, I think we probably have a short.
Well,
Yeah,
before I comment on that directly, I must make mention of President Sands of NACAC, who has continually,
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, sorry.
No, no. Go
Oh, yeah.
ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. I think we just lost Steve there for a moment. I think he probably had a little. So we should get him back as soon as possible. And as soon as we get him, we'll see if he can reconnect again. Oh, yeah. So Steve is here. Yeah, Steve. Sorry about that, but as you were saying, you were giving comment about the collaboration among regional you know federations.
Yes. So I just want to say, President Mike Sands taking up the post as NACAC president, or the new NACAC president, that's something that he has continually promoted. He's developed committees with execution of his duties, and whenever we get a chance, be it at the CARIFTA Games or anywhere else, World Championships, we always have these area meetings where discussions similar to what you're referring to are indeed brought to the forefront, where collaboration um, and suggestions and things of that nature is given an open chance to come to the forefront. Perhaps, maybe it could be done more, but I think he's doing a good job given the resources and the constraints that he works with. But speaking more specifically to the suggestion made by, I presume, the individual from Grenada, again, similar to the previous question, and it's not anything that we would detour. We live in small islands, but just like you're doing right now, the use of technology is something that we can perhaps. I think COVID brought us to use technology a lot more than we did in previous years, and I think we've all become more comfortable with it. So, nothing that I'm against. I guess we would perhaps have to have, whether it's the NACAC or other entity lead those discussions. But again, collaboration is good. So I won't say that it's not something that we can't benefit from. It would take a wealth of effort, because you're not speaking about one or two countries. There's a plethora that would need to come together. But again, we all can benefit from each other, and until we start to realize that, we'll forever be, slowly moving forward. So I support the question or the suggestion that was made.
Yeah. There's another question here. It says, congrats on your great performance. How many athletes will you be sending to World Championships?
Well, junior championships, I think is what the question said. So right now, I hope I don't get myself in trouble. We have Jalil Kroll, Akrise Risti, Kalia Liebud, Kaiba Dawson, Wanye Bell. That's five so far. I could be a tad bit off. I don't have my notes with me, but I think we have five that's already qualified, and I may have missed one or two in between, but at least five or more right now.
Okay, so let's say a minimum of five athletes for the BVI for now.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
yeah, that's
right. And
yeah.
those are sprinters and quarter milers, yeah, for the most part.
Okay. Um, what's about the support from? We spoke about corporate BVI, but what about support from parents and the BVI in general, the public?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you saw, we've got this video posted on our Facebook page, which is a short interview I did with Adeja's mom. since we are indeed speaking about CARIFTA. But I just wanted to bring to the forefront, and let people know, what it takes to get your athlete to that level and beyond. So of course, the BVI is no different from any other Caribbean country. Our athletes, they come out in the afternoon and they train. Some parents do indeed stick around. There you have Adaejah, her mom, and Erica, her coach from younger years in the BVI. But some parents come along. Those who are diehard track and field fans, they stay the entire time. But I've always tried to tell parents, to be supportive of an athlete or an athlete in athletics. It takes a little bit more, because the hour or two that you perhaps spend on the track, that's not going to cut it, because everyone else is doing the same thing. Everyone else everywhere in the world shows up to practice at, I don't know, 4 o'clock, 4:30, and they're there until 6:30, perhaps 7. But it takes a little bit more, and sometimes the parent may have to assist that athlete at home. And it could be physically, sit-ups, push-ups, and things of that nature, nothing out of the way. But it goes beyond that. Adesia's mom spoke about being mentally strong, which is something that we heard a whole lot about at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Your mental stability. How do you deal with these things when you're in that particular position? So we've continually encouraged our parents to come on out, get involved. The more you're around, the more you learn. Of course, from the sidelines, not necessarily on the track, but um, just generally speaking, it's something that, like the BVI, presume every other country will have those battles to fight, and it's something that we've continually try to work. I think it's most difficult. Perhaps you would agree as well, for persons with athletes or parents with athletes who may not have lived the track life, to put themselves in a position to do what it takes to really support their child throughout their track and field career. And it's perhaps those instances where we have the most difficulties, because sometimes it does indeed get a little bit difficult to really get the parent to truly buy into athletics and understand that. We were training. I was on a track doing some coaching about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and there's a parent that came up and said, it wasn't her child, but she was totally concerned about how tired another athlete was. I think it was her first day. And as a matter of fact, she came to look into bringing her child on the track, and she was so concerned. But it takes a little getting used to. But your athlete, very seldomly they'll make it without the support of the parent, and I think that goes without saying. So I hope that provides. It's no different here than in any other country. So the same battles you fight in your homeland is the same battles we fight. We do our best to make sure that they're knowledgeable and they understand. But you deal with new athletes on a yearly basis, so you have new parents on a daily basis. So it's not a battle that you win; it's just one that you continue.
Okay then. And tell us, is the BVI ready or is in a position to host regional track and field championships such as the CARIFTA Games?
Well, it's it perhaps it was before, definitely before 2017. At one of those celebrations that we had, I made mention to our minister at the time, that maybe the BVI can look into hosting the CARIFTA Games in maybe another 7, 8 or 9 years. We had, of course, you would have known that we went through Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and were drastically, that at least the country, devastated from those two hurricanes, notwithstanding the fact that there was a flood just a few short weeks before. So we're back up on our feet. We're not quite where we were, but we're a long way from the devastation that took place back in 2017. But to answer your question, I think those hurricanes may have thrown us back a few years well, in hosting the CARIFTA Games, but it's definitely something that I have continued to mention. I had some sideline discussions with my association members and one or two persons from the Recreation Trust. But the BVI will indeed host the CARIFTA Games. I wish I could sit here tonight and say in 5 years or in 7 years, but the BVI will. I don't think it's something that we would look at doing. I think it's in Bahamas next year. and you continually bid for the game. So hopefully before my tenure is up, I can come to our Congress and make a pitch for hosting it in the BVI. But until I really get a chance to sit down with my Minister of Sports, the Honorable Natalia Wheatley, I really can't sit here tonight and give any commitments or any timelines to holding it, but I do know it's definitely something at the forefront of our discussions here on Island, at least from the association level, and perhaps something that we will continue to push from government standpoint in getting some kind of commitment, perhaps in years to come, because I don't see how we could do that right now, given the fact that we are still in the recovery development stage.
Um, Hearing something from a viewer. Highly impressed with Mr. Augustine. Hope you don't get lassoed into politics, which has the tendency of changing the DNA of committed individuals. Some congrats on one side and some caution on the other side. you know, um, impressed with your performance tonight, but being cautious about getting into politics. And we know what politics have done to people, especially in the Caribbean. And I
Yeah,
assume
right
no
now
plan, no plan by Mr. Augustine. Huh?
yeah, well, it's definitely a flattering type comment. The second part of it, the first part, definitely appreciative. But right now, my heart, my soul is embedded with athletics. Sometimes I go home and my wife often asks me if I did any work today, and I'm like, no, I just spent the whole day dealing with sports. But it's a life that I lived as a youngster. I'm just happy to be in a position where I can help someone that perhaps stood in my shoes many years ago, today. So if at the end of the day, if the association, well, we've done much more than just send one person off to, well, giving one person the opportunities to get off to school or to compete at a higher level. But if the book was to be closed and that's what we did as an association, I would go sleep and I would rest very happy in knowing that, we changed the life of a few individuals. And, that's the joy that I get, that we get, I should say, from what we do. Um, of course, as the association, no one on the association is paid. We all volunteer our time, and we're all professionals on the association. Everyone has, a dedicated job and career and whatever it may take. But when it comes times to deal with the futures of these athletes or these children, we all take time out of our busy schedule and we meet, we discuss, there's always room for improvement. As much as our athletes are out there doing great things on the regional and international scene, there's still a lot of improvement that we need to make locally to really operate as efficient as we should. And we're working on that. I don't think no organization goes without some sideline comments being made on the side. But I like to keep my focus where it should be, and just continually work on self improvement, and that's what we're about from the BVIAA Association. So again, the comment that was made, politics, no, not right now. Athletics, definitely 110%.
Okay, then. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Steve Augustine. We heard the tick, 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 you know. Um, Thank you for
Oh, that went
accepting
by
it.
fast.
Yes, it did. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And I'm certain that you have learned quite a bit about Mr. Augustine, track and field in the BVI, and certainly the mindset of the BVI AA is in terms of moving forward. As I indicated, in the BVI, there are a number of nationals from various Caribbean countries. So certainly, it was a proud moment in terms of performance-wise for the BVI at the CARIFTA Games because I know a lot of people would have been celebrating, and not just those who born in the BVI, but living, working in the BVI. So congratulations once again, and certainly from the comments we have had there, we're very impressed with your performance. Tranquil enough, but and one thing I do like and enjoy that you have been doing giving credit where credit is due. We haven't seen that from many people in the past, but I noticed that from you, and even previous interviews you have done where I was doing some research. You always try to give credit where credit is due, and I want to thank you for that. Any final word before we go?
Well, I just want to put one last plug in there. You did ask about hosting the CARIFTA Games, but the truth is, which I did answer, but the truth is we've had discussions about holding OECS championships back again in the BVI. Hopefully, that's a discussion we can really concrete going into next year. And of course, Leeward Islands Championship is definitely something that we're looking forward to holding again in the BVI. So, if not the CARIFTA Games for a few years' time, definitely OECS Championships and perhaps the Leeward Islands Championships. And maybe at that time we can get some promo from you and your audience and making that meet widely known. But again, thank you for having me. It's been the quickest 1 hour discussion I've ever had in my entire life. So I commend you on that. But it's been good. So thanks again for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Augustine. I really appreciate you accepting, as I say, accepting it and, providing that sort of, discussion on track and field at the BVI. Thank you again, Mr. Augustine.
Two thumbs up. Thanks again.
Right. Okay. So there you heard it from Mr. Augustine. He is, in Tortola, Rotown to be exact, in Tortola, and the president of the British Virgin Islands Athletics Association. And, as you saw, folks, really enjoyed the discussion with Mr. Augustine, and certainly we have the time. We'll try to get him back again, because it has been really smooth, and very fluent, and we enjoy that. And I'm certain that you may have some questions again that you will probably want to ask him regarding track and field and athletics in the BVI. As you see, he's very young, but very energetic, and there's something that he is doing and leading the BVI Athletic Association that we believe that others in the region should follow. As he said, they will always have issues, always have problems, but it's how do you get past those issues and he basically say these are challenges. Okay, these are challenges. How do you get past the challenges? Thank you very much, Mr. Steve Augustine, the president of the BVI Athletic Association. Thank you, folks, for being part of our program this evening. It's always a pleasure having you, and my invitation is to you to join us again, next week when we have another program. But just final thing, structure, and I'm not speaking here of a petty building. A final comment from one of our viewers. Certainly, always, put in something, because as we indicated, it has to do with the structure in place. Once you have structures in place, you certainly will succeed. Thanks, folks, once again. Always a pleasure being with you. Until then, enjoy the rest of the week and the weekend. See you next week. God's willing. Thank you.